following podcast is scheduled for one fall. Coming in at 195 pounds from Studio A, he is the reigning, defending, undisputed host of the Ring of Thunder, Sexy Thor!
Well, Thunderverse. Here's your slightly overdue WrestleMania Night 2 podcast. I mean, I've got a couple other things to talk about right afterwards, but yeah. Meant to do a WrestleMania Night 2 podcast, like, of course, right after Night 2. Even if that meant posting something on Mjolnir Monday. But it was not so. I like to say, well, you know, it was a busy week getting ready for SC Comicon and lots of preparation and all that. But, man, I didn't do any preparation. Let's be real. Though, of course, that weekend, Comic-Con, not WrestleMania, gave me a lot of stuff to think about, but that'll probably come up at some point later. In preparation for SC Comicon was pretty much the extent of going up to Borderlands, picking up my little wristband, and in the meantime, I bought a couple of WWE graphic novels and the Butts and Seats Tony Schiavone graphic novel. And then leaving with the graphic novel, going to Walmart, picking up some groceries, going home, realizing, oh fuck, I left my wristband at Borderlands, and having to go all the way back to pick up my wristband. So, I mean, what you gonna do? I mean, shit, between going up there those 2 times, plus also the 2 days going up to SC Comicon, that's like, I've gone up to South Pleasantburg more in 1 week than I probably have the last year and a half, honestly. But enough about that. And yeah, I'm not going to talk too much about those graphic novels too, because I just had an idea for the next Ring of Thunder video. And yeah, I'm now, it's now been like 3 episodes since I thought up the idea of doing that whole Ring of Thunder TLDR videos. And I haven't done any of them. But you know what? WrestleMania season's past us. We're now in Dragon Con season, and it's definitely a good time to start getting refocused and reorganized ahead of what promises to be, I don't know what it's going to be like, because, shoot, my year last year from January to SC Comicon, I was going like life in general was just going like 35 miles per hour. And then shortly after SC Comicon 2021, life just went like 260 miles per hour the rest of the year. So, yeah, I don't know what it looks like going forward for the remaining 3 months until the Thunderverse anniversary, Thunder Talk anniversary, whatever you want to call it, Thunderversary, and the remaining 5 months till Dragon Con and the remaining 8 months of the whole year. I don't know, but you know, I'm holding on to these little safety bars tight just in case. So let's proceed, shall we? So WrestleMania Night 2 proceeded with Triple H making that retirement incredibly official by leaving his boots in the middle of the ring. It was definitely some feels. And yeah, of course, with the whole time thing, we were just like, oof. But of course, it was a nice little tribute to one of the greats in Hunter Hearst Helmsley, Triple H. And then we started off pretty good with RK Bro defeating Alpha Academy and the Street Profits to retain the Raw Tag Team Championship. And then Gable Steveson hopped the barricade and kicked Chad Gable's ass. And this is like the first time we've seen him in action since he was drafted to Raw last October. But it's okay, because the next night we would finally see Veer Mahan in action after 6 months of all those vignettes. And now, as of this recording, he's been on Raw twice in a row. I mean, it's like I was saying, last year going 260 miles per hour after SC Comicon. I mean, Veer's here, so we might be going like 4,768 miles per hour going forward if we're going to have Veer consistently show up on TV the rest of the year. And these are exciting times, man. And then Bobby Lashley defeated Omos at one point, straight up spearing Omos in his kidney, and I felt that. And, of course, we're just like, oof, so where do we go from here? Well, where we went from here is the next night, MVP was feeling like, Bobby Lashley was feeling like he didn't need MVP anymore, so MVP betrayed Bobby Lashley and has aligned himself with Omos, which is absolutely a wonderful move, and that's definitely one I'm looking forward to seeing play out over the next sports entertainment year. And then Johnny Knoxville, and let's be honest, the rest of the Jackass cast, say that 5 times fast, defeated Sami Zayn in an Anything Goes match, including a giant hand and a giant rat trap. Or like, the spring cheese rat trap. You know what I'm going with. And then Sasha Banks and Naomi defeated Carmella and Queen Zelina, Rhea Ripley and Liv Morgan, and Shayna Baszler and Natalya to become the new WWE Women's Tag Team Champions, which was a result I was hoping for, but it wasn't the result. But you know what? It happens. You live and you learn. It's all good. Congratulations to Naomi and Sasha Banks. Still making history because they are the first black women's tag team champions. So once again, setting up those barriers and knocking them down. And Edge defeated AJ Styles in what was probably, let's say, my third favorite Mania match. Because then Damian Priest all of a sudden just showed up, and now he's aligned himself with Edge on the Mountain of Omnipotence. And rumor is names like Rhea Ripley and Tommaso Ciampa could be joining them, which would be great. But it also sucks, and it was teased last week, that Rhea Ripley might be turning her back on Liv Morgan already, even though this is my favorite women's tag team since Alexa Bliss and Nikki Cross. Hell, it might even be my absolute favorite past Bliss Cross applesauce. Honestly. I mean, especially in the get-up they came out with on WrestleMania. It's like, oh my goodness. Liv Morgan had a Catwoman vibe going on straight up, and Rhea Ripley, I don't know if it was a direct reference to the bunny from AEW, but it was pretty damn close. But hopefully, if Rhea and Liv do split up, Rhea does join the Mountain of Omnipotence and continues to ascend her stardom, and we continue back on that path of, that Liv Morgan singles push that's been so start-stop over the last couple of years, which, I had hope for, that we were really beginning to fire up that train again. But then, because Friday, she was out there on SmackDown taking on Sasha Banks on a singles match. And by the way, Naomi was out with Sasha Banks, but Rhea wasn't with Liv, so, make of that what you will. But still, Sasha Banks hit Rhea Ripley, or hit Sasha Banks, or Liv Morgan hit Sasha Banks with the most devastating move in all of sports entertainment, as one Simon Miller would say, and actually pinned Sasha Banks, which is, unfortunately they put it over as such, but it was the biggest win of Liv Morgan's career so far. I think before that was maybe Natalya or Shayna Baszler. I mean, I don't know, because again, her push has been so start-stop, it's kind of hard to keep track of who she's actually wrestled and actually defeated. But yeah, whoever her last biggest win was, Sasha Banks definitely takes the cake. Because if there was any bigger wins than Sasha Banks, it would probably literally just be either Becky or Charlotte. I mean, we could argue that point until we're blue in the face, but those are the only possibilities of, people to beat that would be bigger wins than Sasha Banks. Or you can make an argument that they would be equal wins to a win over Sasha Banks, and I wouldn't argue with that either. See, despite all my Becky standing, I do hold the other horsewomen in super high regards, so, different strokes for different folks. Oh, but yeah, even though Liv beat Sasha on SmackDown, she took on Naomi on Raw last night, and this time Naomi won. And yet, even though it's the brand she does belong to, Rhea still wasn't out there with Liv. Also, on last week's Raw, after they lost the contenders match to Sasha and Naomi, Rhea said, yeah, I got us a women's tag team championship opportunity next week. And they're like, oh, yay. And now it all of a sudden it just turned to Liv taking on the two tag team champions in singles competitions, and we're allegedly going to have the women's tag team championships next week. I mean, don't hold me to that, though. You know how WWE gets. But I'm just saying, this is what I have seen with my eyeballs and heard with my ear holes. Anyways, next up, Sheamus and Ridge Holland. The match defeated the New Day, Xavier Woods and Kofi Kingston, in the match that was cut for time the previous night on night one. Pretty much just got 2 minutes this time. So you just jobbed out the New Day to these guys while Kofi and Xavier were wearing a getup that was paying tribute to Big E. Like it was literally Big E's gear fitted to their different sizes. And you just jobbed them out to Sheamus and Ridge Holland. Cool. And then Xavier Woods took on Butch on SmackDown, and Xavier beat him, which apparently now Xavier's new finishing move is simply a small package that he's calling the Backwoods. And then Pat McAfee defeated Austin Theory in that match. By the way, Austin Theory is now just called Theory, apparently, because, let's just change everybody's names. And then Mr. McMahon wanted a piece of Pat McAfee, so they were getting ready. Austin Theory beat up Pat McAfee a little bit. Then Mr. McMahon punted a football right into Pat's chest. And considering Mr. McMahon can squat 1,000, that could have actually been a really hard punt. And Mr. McMahon got the 1, 2, 3. And so Austin Theory and Mr. McMahon were just celebrating beating Pat. And once again, the glass broke and Stone Cold Steve Austin came out. And he and Mr. McMahon shared a beer. It looked like the hatchet was buried. And then Mr. McMahon got stunned. Pat McAfee got stunned. Austin Theory might have gotten stunned. I don't really remember. And even though McAfee was stunned, he still took a beer and was just like pouring it down his mouth and down his throat hole. So all the respect to that guy for just really committing. So yeah, it was a weird match, a weird segment, but you know what? We saw Stone Cold again. We saw him stun Mr. McMahon again for maybe the last time. And we saw a stunned Pat McAfee pour a beer down his guzzler. So it was a weird segment, but it was pretty cool. And then we had the main event. Roman Reigns has finally defeated Brock Lesnar in the grandest stage of them all to become the undisputed WWE Universal Champion. And yeah, the match itself was iffy. And either there was just a crossing of the wires or something happened and it was just not nearly as good a match as was advertised, or as is what's circulating around on the internet, which y'all know I don't deal with that shit at all, or at least as minimally as I could. But there was stuff going around on the internet that either Roman separated his shoulder or he tore something in his shoulder. The separated shoulder part had all the fear in me because that's what Finn Balor got when he won the Universal Championship, and he had to relinquish the Universal Championship the next day. And I was just like, no, do not tell me that Roman becomes undisputed WWE Universal Champion and he has to fucking relinquish it the next day. But no, that's not the case at all, because he was on the Raw after Mania, had Dallas, Texas acknowledge him. Then he said on SmackDown he would talk about his next move, or reveal his next move, which he did. And he said he wanted the Usos to go get those Raw Tag Team Championships and unify them with the SmackDown Tag Team Championships and become the undisputed WWE Tag Team Champions. And they might be on the path to doing that. Oh, and after that, Shinsuke Nakamura came out because, you know, he was pissed at the Usos because his partner, Rick Boogs, got injured, and Roman just, you know, gave him a hug because he is benevolent tribal chief. And then he got a little super kick party from the Usos. So I guess we're doing Roman and Shinsuke next, which is fine with me. And unfortunately, it's probably going to be, you know, he does this Universal Championship program with Roman, and then they pretty much put him on the shelf until Rick Boogs is better in 6 months to a year. Or maybe not. But unfortunately, that is like sort of how some of Roman's opponents have gone. People like Cesaro, you know, they get to that top and they're in that Universal Championship program, and then they're just like forgotten about. But hopefully that's not the case with Shin, because everybody knows he deserves way better. And then last night on Raw, the Usos went to confront RK Bro and challenge for those championships, but the Street Profits were just like, no, you're not cutting to the front of the line. So in the main event of Raw, the Usos beat the Street Profits, and now looks like we're going to get the Usos versus RK Bro very soon. Winner take all, title for title. So Roman's still champion. The Usos might be the undisputed tag team champions here soon. Exciting times for the bloodline. So that was WrestleMania, and that's what's been going on with WrestleMania. And with Backlash, we already have a couple of matches announced and set up. We've got the rematch of Charlotte versus Ronda Rousey for the SmackDown Women's Championship in an I Quit match. So interesting to see where that goes. And we have the rematch of Seth Rollins versus Cody Rhodes. No, not for any titles or anything, just a plain and simple rematch, because now Seth wants a crack at him now that Cody isn't a surprise and he knows what to prepare for. I mean, even though if Seth had been reading the internet leading up to WrestleMania, I mean, obviously he would have been like, you know what, there's probably a good 90% chance that I'll be facing Cody Rhodes, and 90% is probably a conservative estimate, so let me just prepare for him. But of course, I mean, I know story and everything. And then Bianca Belair signed an open contract presented by Sonya Deville to take on somebody at the Raw Women's Championship, and then she was about to bring her out, and I swear to God, I think me and everybody else thought it was going to be Bayley, because she did say it was somebody who a year ago swore to come back and go after and become champion. But no, it was Sonya Deville herself. Yep. So it's going to be Bianca versus Sonya Deville. And leading up to Sonya blindsiding Bianca to reveal that it was going to be her, she was listing all these competitors that in the Raw Women's division that she could be facing. And I was like, and you know, there's Alexa Bliss. And I was just like, oh, is it Alexa Bliss? Oh, is she a part of the Raw Women's division? I wasn't sure because no one's seen hair or hide of her since WrestleMania. Unless you've been paying attention to social media, of which we know exactly what she's been doing. Congratulations to her and Ryan Cabrera for getting married. And having is it the whole guest list being a whole bunch of late 90s, early 2000s pop stars as half the crowd, and then the other half of the crowd being current and former WWE superstars. Liv was there. I think Sonya was there. CJ Perry, the former Lana, was there. Lena Fanine, the former Nia Jax, was there. And Mojo Rawley was there. Austin Romero was there. Or no, that's his government shoot name. Austin Romero, that being Mike Rome, was there. I see Austin Romero as his Instagram handle the whole time, so I keep thinking, or I don't know, because I don't think he's been called Mike Rome on TV for a good while, so I don't know if he's going by Austin Romero or not, honestly. This gives me pause to consider. I mean, he could still be Mike Rome, I don't know, but Ring of Thunder investigative reports. What is Mike Rome going by his government name now? Dun dun dun. Okay, so to wrap this up, we got to go talk about SC Comicon, because not only is it essentially the first time somebody probably said Sexy Thor in person to me and brought about that origin story, was essentially the conception of Thunder Talk in March 2018 before it finally went in July 2018. But yeah, the wrestling presence there is freaking incredible now. I mean, it's like it was tailor-made to just cover all parts of the Thunderverse. And yes, if you've been paying attention to my social media, you'll know I got to meet Matt Hardy. Fuck yes. Very nice guy. And I gave him props for that tables match that he and his brother had against Butcher and the Blade last week on Dynamite. He said he had a lot of fun doing that. Very much enjoyed that. And he thanked me for supporting AEW. So anybody who thinks I'm just a shill for WWE, Matt Hardy says I support AEW, and I have the facts to back it up because, I mean, I've watched pretty much every Dynamite, every Rampage. I've probably watched more Dark and Elevation episodes than like probably 40% of the fan base. And I have purchased for sure every pay-per-view since Revolution 2020. And those pay-per-views are not they're not Peacock prices, that's for sure. Oh, and I've gone back and I bought Double or Nothing 2019 and I think one other of the 2019 pay-per-views from back before when I watched it on TV and was just like, hey, like this company. And got to know all the wonderful people, including one Cody Rhodes, who in just a few weeks I'll be watching on WrestleMania Backlash, that I still, watched on the bump where he was the only guest, so which was perfect, just having him on there and just have him talk and sort of tell his story and all that, even though I've been in between WrestleMania shows, been just looking up and seeing all the other interviews and media he's done talking about things and seeing his side of the story and everything. So yeah, not a shill for WWE. It's just that, their content's all over the place and it's definitely easy to just talk about all of that. But yeah, got to meet Matt Hardy. Freaking awesome experience. And it was funny because originally I was planning to do it on Saturday, and then I was like sort of looking at the lines and everything and how I was feeling kind of weird, so I was just like, maybe I won't. And then walking around with Mark and Dan, and we were talking to Bill Gallagher, an artist of Archie Comics that they've interviewed before on Best Saturdays of Our Lives. Super nice guy, by the way. And I just see rounding one of the desks heading back to the celebrity area, freaking Tony Schiavone. And he's wearing a Braves bomber jacket, and I'm seeing him over there, and I'm wearing my Braves baseball cap. I was just like, oh my God. And then Mark and Dan want to check out the celebrity guest area, and I'm just like, fuck it. And Matt Hardy only had like a couple people in his line at that point, so I was like, fuck it, I'll go ahead and meet him. I'd already purchased the thing ahead of time when I bought my tickets online, because apparently that's a thing you can do now, and I think that's an incredibly smart idea, because I think the whole mystery unknown thing of not knowing how much someone it is for autograph / picture, and whether it's cash or card or not, I don't know, maybe I'm just fucking mistaken or whatever, but I think that might deter some people, maybe. But so yeah, the whole thing of getting to prepay for an autograph and or selfie is a fantastic idea. Or at the very least, have the prices way further out in front of the line and not at the desk of the guest. I don't know. This isn't a Walk of Fame talk anyway. This is Ring of Thunder. Oh, and yeah. And I was thinking about going to meet Tony Schiavone and asking him to sign my Butts and Seats book. But I ended up not, because Sunday just ended up going a little bit differently. I was there, but I was hanging out with some of my old Regal mates, all of whom in that group ended up going over to Spirit Halloween with me after we caused a mutiny. And yeah, I'm just throwing that information out there anymore because fuck it, why not? I don't work there anymore. And so I was walking around with them for a bit. So if you saw that picture on my social media of me holding up the Universal Championship dressed as Roman Reigns with that sun glistening perfectly off of that title, or belt as Cody still calls it on Raw, with like 2 anime cosplayers. Those are actually my friends. I didn't just run into them and just be like, hey, you two, take a picture with me. So take a picture with me cosplays as a wrestler, even though I don't know which characters you even are. But I have seen enough cosplay, I guess, to where I can definitely appreciate, to a point at least, the fine work they did. And then, yeah, Dan and I went around, got some interviews. Our juice wasn't up there as much as we would have liked. I'll admit that, but it is what it is, and it was a good experience. It was a fun experience, and definitely a learning experience, and trying to figure some things out before Dragon Con time. It's definitely a good lesson in fail to prepare, prepare to fail. You know how that saying goes. Oh, and Sunday when I was walking around with my friends, at one point I walked past Cash Wheeler and Dax Harwood, who were walking the other way. So it's just like, oh shit, I'm just walking along and fucking FTR's passing me going the other way. I mean, it's going to be, if that's how SC Comicons are going to be happening, then that's fine with me. Have wrestler celebrity guests over there and meet some of them and have them walk by me on the convention floor. You know, it sounds good to me, because that's just more stories I can tell and ramble about on this here podcast. And then, in a most wonderful random, this is why we do it, turn of events, after Dan left and I still had some time to, just wander around and buy some stuff, which I did buy some art pieces. Bought a cool Harley Quinn and Spider-Man one with some cool Batman and Darth Vader bookmarks. Yeah, I was just wandering about and I was just like, fuck it, I'm going to be shopping. I'll spend $200, $300 on all this shit, because I'm a sucker for those art pieces. Famously, as I came to that realization last year at SC Comicon Junior. And yeah, I had stopped for a second, was trying to straighten up my belt, and this guy passed by and he was giving me props on my shirt, and he had a little the amazing Tony Schiavone, the Amazing Spider-Man comic book style shirt that he got on boxofgimmicks.com, which they sell merch for all the ad-free shows, Conrad Thompson podcasts. So yeah, we stopped and we talked wrestling, and I thought it was going to be for a little while, but it ended up taking up the rest of the convention time, which I don't know what time it was when we started talking, but it was at least an hour, maybe an hour and a half, just standing there past the entrance, after the entrance to the convention floor. And yeah, just talking all sorts of wrestling. And at one point we were joined by a gentleman who apparently used to be a local independent wrestler who had wrestled with I can't remember if he said if it was Dax or Cash, back in their pre-WWE days. So that was really cool. And then this other guy who had this white t-shirt where he collected other wrestlers' autographs. And I saw all sorts of legends and indie wrestlers' autographs on there. And man, that was just the coolest thing. So yeah, shout out to you if you ever run across this here podcast. Shout out to you, Christoph. Thank you for a very, very engaging and entertaining and fun wrestling conversation right in the middle of the convention floor. to end a sort of time where I was like kind of in a weird funk, and I won't get into all that here yet again. That is for me to figure out and for you to reap the benefits of me figuring it out on. But yeah, still, despite the challenges, it was definitely an incredible weekend, and now we are on the road to Dragon Con. So yeah, hope you enjoyed this very late recap of WrestleMania Night 2 and this rambly recap of the wrestling adventures at SC Comicon. It does look like Rick Steiner is okay, because I know on NXT the previous week they're now running a little plot line or angle where Joe Gacy and Harlan has kidnapped Rick Steiner, Braun Breaker's father, in order to start a feud with Braun Breaker, of course, over the NXT championship. But yeah, Rick Steiner is fine, guys. So yeah, I'll see you whenever I get another jolt of inspiration to make another podcast. I guess now I have a video to plan with those comic books. And yeah, kick butts, not nuts.
How did watchdog groups with no experience in television take a controlling interest on Saturday morning television?
When did Wonder Woman make her animated debut?
Want to know why there were two competing Ghostbuster shows?
How Atari changed the Saturday morning landscape?
How did networks compete over similar genres at the same time?
Find out all of this and more on the Best Saturdays of Our Lives podcast.
A proud member of the ESO Network.
Hello. Have you ever wondered how much Jerry Siegel and Joe Shuster sold Superman's rights to DC for? Or which popular football star was the Sam Wilson the Falcons' physical appearance based on? You can find all that and more at the History of Comic Books podcast, a podcast dedicated to the creators, events, history, and the companies that made the great comic book medium. Hosted and created by your friendly neighborhood JT Wheatley. Please give it a listen at iTunes, Spreaker, Stitcher, and all our podcasting platforms. Thank you, and go ahead and enjoy yourself a good comic book.
Hey guys, gals, and non-binary pals.
It's Amanda Bones.
And I'm Ashley.
Of How to Talk to Your Friend About Wrestling, the podcast on the Count Out Wrestling Podcast Network, a weekly show where we talk about all of our favorite things, babes, blood, and brutality.
We also talk about other fun things, like is Kenny Omega finally too tan? And how much blood is too much blood? Because that looks like way too much blood.
So join us on the adventure of teaching me, Amanda Bones, about wrestling.
Do you like podcasts?
Then you're gonna hate Thunder Talk.
Tasteless subject matter.
Mature humor.
Contempt for our co-hosts.
Unapologetic social views.
Edgy music.
And total irreverence for the nerd junk we love.
Are all reasons why
No one
should listen to Thunder Talk.
Find us on the ESO network.
and all podcasting platforms.
Or don't.
Whatever.